Look at those speed babies flying across the racetrack. The roar of the engines, the smell of burned rubber. Yes, friend, we are back. Stories from Motorsports. Learn about the drivers, learn about the humor. Stories from Motorsports. With your host Doug Kenny, learn about the funny moments from behind the wheel. Stories from Motorsports. Stories from Motorsports. Learn about the cars, learn about racing, and hopefully you will be inspired to get into racing or attend a race in the future. Stories from Motorsports with Douglas Kenny and Josh May. Oh!
I have, yeah. I ran there actually last month for the open wheel showdown in a modified. And then we've ran some late models and we try to go there. They have a big modified race at the end of each year usually. So we try to make it down there for that when we have a car to play with.
Nice. Where'd you finish at the bull ring?
I didn't transfer from the B. We actually wrecked out in the transfer spot. There was a big old pile up and couldn't get on the brakes fast enough, and it broke a couple things in the front end, and that was that. That was a tough race. There are some really good drivers, great equipment there. They're doing an awesome thing with that show. It's making us all have to step our game up, that's for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever raced in ASA Internationals?
No, I never ran in the actual big touring series. Now they used to sanction a lot of our tracks that were around here. So Meridian was an ASA Speedway, and I did win a championship under the ASA banner. So I guess yes, I technically have ran in the ASA, but not in the Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, ASA's national tour stuff like that. When you think of that,
Got
but
it. What was it like when you crossed the finish line to win the championship?
that was awesome. That was awesome. I was driving for Scott Walker still at the time, and Scott had been racing Meridian locally for gosh, a very long time since mid 80s, maybe before that. Couldn't remember, but he'd ran late models, dabbled in them, and just kind of never had the success that we were able to put together with me behind the wheel. So going out to I can't remember if it was our third or fourth year together because he I started driving for him pretty young, so he let me really get my get the wild hairs off the top of my head and then polished me up a little bit. And by then, we were winning races and won that championship. I was just so happy and just so happy for him and proud of everybody. He actually let me do my first burnout in the car and stuff. That was cool. So that was there was just a lot of cool, happy emotions flowing there. It's an experience that I definitely hope everybody that behind the wheel gets to go through one day for sure.
Definitely, championships can be very tough to lose these days. We saw Denny Hamlin just barely lose his last
Yeah.
last month. What was your reaction to that if you heard about it?
Oh, it was heartbreaking. That yeah, he's been so close so many times, and this was his closest. I mean, even if you're not a Denny Hamlin fan, you have to kind of feel for the guy. He's one of the sport's greatest, and
Hmm.
yeah, I'm sure he'll come back more motivated than ever.
I
He'll get
definitely
one.
think he will. I definitely think he will. I was disappointed and gut-wrenched for Denny, even though I'm a huge Kyle Larson fan.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of Kyle, and I actually met him a few years ago at Phoenix Raceway at one of my last NASCAR races I attended. And I remember that Kyle he was very friendly and classy, and he's a great representation of a champion. And I remember being still disappointed for Denny, even though if it weren't him, I was happy for Kyle as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If anybody else was going to win it, Kyle was the guy that I would love to see too. And kind of going back to your question earlier, he's another one that we grew up around outlaw kart racing, play hide and seek with each other. When we were young kids at the tracks we were at, because we'd always camp out at the tracks we were racing at. Um, just an awesome story from him, and everything he's been able to do, and a great champion. Like, that's those are two guys that deserve to be racing it out at the end. And Kyle, he just showed his talent and flat just drove around everybody and won that thing like he
Yeah.
does a lot.
Yep, he's definitely a winner. Have you ever met him?
Oh yeah, yep, yep, yeah. I've at pretty much every cup race that I've been to since, racing with him the outlaw kart days. He probably won't remember me or anything, but I always go up and like talk to him and ask how he's doing and stuff, just because we have grown up around, some of the same playgrounds and racetracks, I mean, uh and all that. And then he was really making his leaps when I was in the K&N series. So some of the tracks that we got to run around there, I'd be able to be fortunate enough to be in the same pit meeting or whatever and be able to chop it up with him just a little bit. But yeah, he's just such a cool, down to earth guy. He really is. I mean, he's the same cool dude that he's always been. Like,
Yep, he's also like Kyle Busch and a lot of the other drivers at the moment. He's a champion in his family life as well, with all the
mhm.
great familial dynamics he's developed with his children. And now he and Clint Boyer and Kyle Busch's children are hanging out and,
Yeah,
going up to Chris Myers and doing interviews. And they're now getting into racing. And it's
mhm.
like you're watching this next generation of
Yeah,
drivers on the rise.
exactly. Yeah, they're growing up right in front of our eyes. It'll be, it's gonna happen quick. They'll start being in bigger rides, and it'll feel like it's tomorrow.
Yep, for sure. So, the biggest highlight of the year in motorsports, other than the recent unfortunate tragic loss of Greg Biffle, was obviously the 2311 front row lawsuit against NASCAR and the fact that NASCAR basically caved when the verdict was about to come out. What was your reaction to all that? Do you think it was good for the sport, or do you think it was mixed a little bit, both good and bad a little bit? What are your thoughts?
And that's tough. I don't know if I have a big opinion on it. It seems like the teams ended up getting what they wanted out of the deal. So
Yeah.
this is a really tough sport to keep going if you're not making money. So hopefully, whatever their deal was, which seems like it was a good one, just makes it easier for teams to operate and have success and grow into the future. And then hopefully it makes it easier for new teams to evolve and new manufacturers to come in and all that stuff. So, um, I love this sport so much. I hope they have done the right things just to make everybody happy. So there's no more fighting. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will turn out for the best because, the teams are now basically secured for going forward with the evergreen charters, as they now
Yep.
call them. So I think it's going to turn out good for everyone.
Yep. Yep. I think so too, but time will tell.
Oh, wow, baby, look at those speed babies flying across the racetrack. The roar of the engines, the smell of burned rubber. Yes, friend, we are back. Stories from Motorsports. Learn about the drivers, learn about the humor. Stories from Motorsports. With your host Doug Kenny, learn about the funny moments from behind the wheel. Stories from Motorsports. Stories from Motorsports. Learn about the cars, learn about racing, and hopefully you will be inspired to get into racing or attend a race in the future. Stories from Motorsports with Douglas, Kenny,